All right, Senate Democrats calling out big businesses benefiting from President Trump's tax plan. We'll be speaking to Senator Tammy Baldwin, who says corporations are using their tax cuts to line the executives' pockets while laying off workers. You're watching Velsheen Rule. Where else? MSNBC.
Welcome back to Velsheen Rule. We were just telling jokes in the break. The White House is grappling with Gary Cohn's resignation. Some in the West Wing are afraid of what it'll mean from a policy perspective.
We need a commercial, Cam. According to Politico, some worry that the White House could return to the uncontrolled days immediately following Trump's inauguration,
Remember those?
when many West Wing jobs were still unfilled and former strategist Steve Bannon was writing executive orders with policy advisor Stephen Miller, including the disastrous travel ban that was ultimately knocked down by multiple courts.
Joining us now is Democratic Senator from Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin. Senator, good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Good to see you.
Are you worried about the effects of Gary Cohn's resignation on an already chaotic White House?
You know, certainly we have seen, even with him at the White House, a lot of different positions taken by our president on critical issues. People are talking a lot about the tariff issue. But what's important to me is that we get the policy right. And because Gary Cohn's departure has been linked to this tariff issue, let me kind of start there, because I actually agree with the president's intent. We need a level playing field for our workers. We need to crack down on countries that cheat, like China. And tariffs are certainly a set of tools that can be used, but they need to be targeted. And that's where I hope the president will end when he announces the specifics behind his earlier announcement. I think Canada should be exempt, for example, et cetera. But the other thing I would tell you is that I really think that basic first step ought to be Buy America policies if we care about protecting American workers from the cheating that takes place in China and other countries. And when we have an infrastructure package that has been introduced by this president, it doesn't even mention the words Buy America after he campaigned on that, that's ridiculous, and we have to focus on that. One of the best things we can do to help lift workers in this country is to say that we're going to produce and repair our infrastructure with American iron and American steel.
One of the things that Stephanie talks about a lot when we were discussing the taxes, the tax bill, is that we were worried that if you give corporations the tax breaks that they're getting, in many cases they will favor investors or engage in stock buybacks. And
which, by the way, is what, you know, their fiduciary, who are their stakeholders? It's their shareholders.
So that's what they've been doing. And you're planning on introducing an amendment today to the Crapo tester bill with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Tell us about this amendment and what it would do.
Well, ever since the early 80s, the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC, has had a safe harbor for stock buybacks. And when it first came into place, 2% of corporate profits or net income were spent on stock buybacks. Today, it's closing in on 60%. And we are seeing all sorts of ill effects of this. We're seeing companies, instead of looking at the long-term health of their company and their workers and making investments and reinvestments in their equipment, we're seeing so much money spent on dividends and stock buybacks. But stock buybacks is where I really focus, because that's not generally shared with the workers who contributed mightily to those profits and their net income. So I want to see the safe harbor come to a close, and this amendment would also require companies to say, you know, do they have any unfunded liability, for example, in their pension? Have they raised wages of workers, so that we can know whether they are basically just enriching their shareholders or if they're really making solid investments for the long term. Let me give you one example from Wisconsin that is just really weighing on my mind. Kimberly-Clark, a company that opened in Wisconsin in 1872, just got a huge tax break because of the Republican tax plan. And They made $3.3 billion in profit last year and announced this year that they would be doing $900 million in stock buybacks, and also announced that they'd be closing 2 plants in Wisconsin, giving 610 pink slips to workers. This is outrageous. That one of the plants, I met with the workers recently, and they were told at the beginning of the year that they had met or exceeded every goal set for their workforce. And then 3 weeks later, they were told they were going to lose their jobs. This is outrageous,
right,
and we've got to clamp down.
This bill has some bipartisan support, but it pits progressives against moderates in your party. And this is very important because if the resistance sort of takes hold, you'll lose the ability to capture the middle. And you've got important elections coming up.
Yes. So first of all, on the bill that's before the Senate this week, you know, everybody agrees that credit unions and community banks need some relief. But we are only a decade out from a financial meltdown that stole the savings of millions upon millions of Americans. By some estimates, wiped away $19 trillion of savings and wealth. They cannot be allowed to write the rules again. The big banks need to have this oversight. And frankly, I'm offering the amendment on stock buybacks. But there are other crises that have occurred that we ought to be fixing, not letting them write the rules again. Take Equifax and their huge breach.
Yep.
Take Wells Fargo and their false fake accounts that allowed them to profit mightily while their customers didn't even know this was happening. We should be tougher, not not allow Wall Street to write the rules again.
Senator, always good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Senator Tammy Baldwin. All right, this just in. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has sent a message